You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in.
a Mamamia podcast.
Hello and welcome to Cancelled. I'm Claire Stevens and I'm joined by
Jessie Stevens.
Thanks for that introduction. Look, this is a silly podcast. We want to give pylon culture the level of seriousness it deserves, which is not a lot. Because while we're all yelling about the latest problematic thing a celebrity tweeted, there's a literal war. And that's anxiety-provoking. So we're here to tell the story of a celebrity's alleged cancellation from beginning to end and dish out justice because we need punishments that fit the crime. Jessie, today I was thinking, if I don't make my bed, do I go to jail? No. Unless I rob someone after that. That's a different type of transgression. We're talking about social crimes and then coming up with punishments that correspond to that and really put people in their place. Exactly. So, Jess, you might be wondering who is on trial today.
Yes.
Lea Michele.
Don't tell me not to live, just sit and putter. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Don't tell me not to fly.
The best thing about being on tour with everyone is that we really honestly all do get along, thank God. So we get to have a lot of fun with each other.
Glee star Heather Morris is revealing more about what it was like to be around Lea Michele on the set of that hit show, as Lea has now been called out for being a bully.
How have we not done Lea Michele yet? Potentially, I would say, top 3 most cancelled celebrities.
I saw a tweet that said she is the only celebrity who's really been cancelled. And I thought that was weirdly true. She really has, hasn't she? She is a 35-year-old actress, singer, songwriter, and author. She was a child actress on Broadway and she was cast as a young Cosette in Les Mis when she was 8.
Wow.
Always creates issues. She then went on to be in Ragtime, Fiddler on the Roof, and Spring Awakening, all musicals on Broadway. Her most notable screen role was as Rachel on Glee between 2009 and 2015, and she was nominated for Emmys and Golden Globe Awards for her performance.
All right, I never watched Glee and I have a question.
All right.
Why were they always performing? Who were they performing to?
I can't believe I have to explain this. It's called Glee Club. It's Glee Club and they were performing and their teacher was running the Glee Club and they performed to the school. But there were also competitions.
Living just to find emotion, hiding somewhere in the night.
Because I am not, they call themselves Gleeks. I am not a Gleek.
I'm certainly not a Gleek.
I've watched the odd episode. So that's as far as my knowledge goes. But my knowledge on Lea Michele specifically, profound. The Glee cast had multiple songs on the Billboard charts throughout the show's run. Lea Michele went on to star in Scream Queens and The Mayor and to release albums as an artist. She's also published 2 books, one of which is called You First, Journal Your Way to Your Best Life. And that's going to be relevant later on for a separate reason.
Okay.
But just for context, there are 2 types of tweets that happen about Lea Michele every few months. And I'm not going to give you context. We're going to go into them. One is thinking about how Lea Michele can't read. That's one.
Okay.
And the second is something doesn't feel right and I know it's Lea Michele's fault. And they're just the vibe. That's the Lea Michele vibe.
Okay.
Let's start with Rachel on Glee because that is who Lea Michele played. I need to enter into the courtroom the vibe of that role and that show. So, Jess, you have accurately pinpointed that it was corny, cheesy, lots of singing, lots of silly drama. And the character of Rachel was obnoxious, annoying, entitled. She was a control freak and unapologetically ambitious.
You might laugh because every time I sign my name, I put a gold star after it, but it's a metaphor. And metaphors are important. My gold stars are a metaphor for me being a star.
Kind of typical, like, highly strung type A musical theatre kid.
Yeah.
We've spoken before about how sometimes we get mixed up between a role someone has played and who they are as a person. Common mistake. We said about Mel Gibson, thought he was a great guy because of Signs.
Yes.
Easy error. But for Lea Michele, there is a general sense that she is quite similar to her on-screen character, Rachel.
Hasn't she said that? Hasn't she said, I base her on my, younger self?
Yes, and you might have seen this. I forgot I had seen this. In her audition for Glee, she sings On My Own from Les Mis, which is just an excellent song. And
Absolutely.
Her voice...
No, I'll cry.
I'll cry. Her voice is beautiful. So she's doing this audition, but when she talks about the audition in hindsight, she says that the pianist messed up my song, which... bit of foreshadowing about how she sees the people around her. But the pianist messes up her song. And so in the footage from her audition, she's singing, then she stops and demands to go back to the second verse.
We have to go back to the second verse.
And everyone starts laughing because they think she's in character as Rachel, but she's not. She says, that wasn't meant to be funny. That was my serious moment. And everybody just keeps laughing. They laugh harder. And then she sort of plays into it and she's like, I'm going to do it again. And this time everyone's going to cry. But look, there was a miscommunication in that everybody thought, what a great actress, what an interesting character. And what she was actually playing was Lea Michele, the person.
Yes, and that's complicated because she got the role of a teenager who took herself too seriously and was highly ambitious based on, as you say, what people thought was acting prowess, and she discovered very quickly, oh no, there was a misunderstanding. I have to show up and be myself.
Yeah.
Every day.
Which, great hack.
Which involves being rude to people. It's like if I went to an audition and they said, you play an awkward, socially anxious loser with no friends perfectly. And I'd say, I didn't know the audition had started. I'm just here saying hi, filling out my forms. And they'd go, you've got it. You've got the role. Well, don't start the audition because I'll panic. Let's go with this.
So I went back and watched a few episodes of Glee for research, and unsurprisingly, it hasn't all aged well. There are weird storylines that involve teachers inappropriately touching students, as there always is in any American high school TV show. There's a lot of use of the word gay that isn't very modern. You cringe watching it. There are jokes about the kid in Glee Club who's in a wheelchair, but none of that I can hold Lea Michele accountable for. She didn't write the show. But I do need it entered that the show is cringe. And when you go on TikTok, you see lots of mashups of terrible dialogue, like just songs that didn't work.
And it speaks to a universal truth. I can't remember if we've acknowledged it on this show before, but people who sing songs take themselves too seriously. And I don't want to offend our audience, but if you sing particularly with a guitar and you close your eyes when you do it, you are a person who at times takes yourself seriously. And at times it makes those around you feel profoundly uncomfortable. And so I have met many Lea Michelles. We went to school with them.
Yeah.
And they
won the talent quest. So Lea Michele establishes this amazing career from musical theatre and from Glee. She was also in that terrible movie, New Year's Eve. We've talked about that before on the podcast. She was in it. She was one of the star cast. But then everything went wrong. It's June 2020, and the story of George Floyd has started an international conversation about racism and police brutality. Lea Michele tweets, George Floyd did not deserve this. This was not an isolated incident, and it must end. Hashtag Black Lives Matter.
You want to have an impeccable record, don't you?
Yeah.
And look, was she in a bind? Yes, because you can't go, have I personally been racist in my life? Yes. Do I think that George Floyd shouldn't have been murdered by a police officer? Yes. But you got to know that those two things are going to be drawn together and people are going to be like, Lea.
But she didn't. She clearly didn't. She thought it was in the cone. She thought her bad behaviour was
She
a bit
probably didn't
hush-hush.
even tweet it. It was probably her manager who was like, we've got to get on this. This hashtag's trending. Where's your square?
And
she
then
was
her
like, "What
manager's
square?"
like, okay, could you warn me about this, gestures broadly at everything. Her former Glee co-star Samantha Ware responded, saying in capital letters, it's important that this is in capital letters, "Remember when you made my first television gig a living hell? I believe you told everyone that if you had the opportunity, you would shit in my wig."
Okay.
Now, it is very important that we go deeper into what Ware is alleging, and it is awful that Lea Michele made someone's job a living hell. However, we need to talk about shitting in a wig. Is this a normal insult?
It is so beautifully specific that you know it's true.
Yeah.
And that's what I truly love about it. I also love that the rest of this tweet that Samantha Ware wrote, she referred to this as a microaggression. Shitting in a wig is a straight up aggression. That is a macroaggression. If someone shat in my wig and I put it on my head, I wouldn't say that's a microaggression. A microaggression is so much smaller than that. I'd say that's a crime because of the possibility of illness and mess, smell. If that person has, a disease and it's getting
what
in your
happens?
eyes.
So she shits in a wig.
Yep.
Let's just take it to its logical conclusion. She shits in a wig. Samantha Ware goes to put her wig on.
Mm-hmm.
Does she see the shit? Does she not see the shit?
No.
And at what point does the shit fall out when you're putting it on your head? Do you know what I mean? Is it fully upside down? Is it falling onto your face?
So she didn't look in it, similar to how some people put their foot in a boot and there's a snake in it and you haven't looked yet, which I believe is quite a common occurrence, being bitten by a red-bellied black snake in a boot. It's a similar thing because you pick up the wig, you don't realise that there's shit in it because, I don't know, but you can't smell it. Maybe you've got COVID.
I have to say, you don't expect there to be shit in your wig.
I've never checked my wig for shit. And so, she might not know. So she puts the wig on and she doesn't know immediately, but she goes, oh, it's, I was going to say cooler in here, but I actually think warmer. It's
and a bit
warmer
wet
in here than usual and it's wet. And that's when the shit in the wig starts to trickle down. And it goes into the ear orifices first, which causes infection. It then trickles down over the forehead into
Unless
the
it's quite
eyes.
hardened. But yeah, no, I do think it's a wet one. Yeah.
Yeah, then into the eyes and then ultimately into the mouth, which is where we start getting, I'm going to go a bit of salmonella, but then I'm going to go like a linearia, like a listeria, like a like one of those areas.
I don't know anything about like
poo-based illnesses. I know.
Poo-based illnesses. But I think it's all of them.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. It would start a new pandemic. That's what would happen. Moving on. Because then Ware spoke to Variety and said, as soon as she decided she didn't like me, it was very evident. It was after I did my first performance, that's when it started. The silent treatment, the stare downs, the looks, the comments under the breath, the weird passive aggressiveness. Again, I think threatening to shit in someone's wig is just plain aggressiveness. It's not that passive.
We've got to create a line there. Like, what's an example of a passive aggressive move? Just being like...
Rolling your eyes.
Rolling your eyes, passive aggressive. Then we've got the line, then we've got 100 metres, and then we've got shitting in a wig, just to put that on the record.
Agree. So Samantha went on to claim that Lea once threatened to have her fired after she was hanging around off camera when Lea was filming a performance scene. And then when she tried to speak up, Lea told her to shut her mouth and that she didn't deserve her job. She doesn't seem to know it to stop.
No, she doesn't. And the question here becomes, can you support Black Lives Matter while also being mean to people in your own life? I don't know if those two things are incompatible.
The question, I guess, is, and the point Samantha Ware was making was, okay, so you're calling out systematic racism, but you made my life a living hell as a black woman. In Lea Michele's defense, she is an equal opportunist mean person. Because Heather Morris from the show, who played cheerleader Brittany S. Pierce, tweeted, was she unpleasant to work with? Very much so. Which I like the simplicity of that. Then Dabby S. Snell, who appeared on one episode of Glee, claimed he wasn't allowed to sit with Michele on set. Also in capitals, he said, girl, you wouldn't let me sit at the table with the other cast members because I didn't belong there. fuck you, Lea. Throughout all of this, there are a bunch of high-profile actors who are just liking all these tweets, which that's passive-aggressive. Abigail Breslin was one of them who was just behind the scenes liking all the ones. Actor Jante Godlock tweeted, "Did somebody say cockroaches?" I don't think they did, but continue. Because that's what she used to refer to the background as on the set of Glee. But we grow up and we don't stay background forever. So she called people cockroaches.
And I love that the people who truly believe that Lea Michele is mean, they popped up and they were like, look, she's really mean. Like, she ruined my life. But I'll put it on the record, she's not a racist.
Yeah, no. She's not racist. She's not transphobic. She's not homophobic. She just is rude always.
She's equally mean to everyone that she comes across. Did you see her apology that she released on Instagram?
I did.
Yes, she released an apology, which was basically definitely written by her PR person, but I rewrote it.
Okay.
Because what she had to say was, I'll grow and I'll learn, and I'm sorry about the perception that on set I was sometimes not my best. I was young, like, you know, all of those buzzwords. And so the first line is kind of like, there's a template, right? I don't know who has a template. It's in a WhatsApp group somewhere. But insert first line of template. I apologize for my behavior and for any pain which I have caused. Okay? Yeah. Apology, tick. This is what I think the original draft of the apology read, but then she had to rework it. One thing I wanted to clarify is that I am mean to everyone, regardless of the color of their skin. Yeah. I am only nice to people who are as powerful or more powerful than me, such as the King in Hamilton, that Jonathan guy.
Jonathan Groff is her best friend. Yep.
And because of the way the world is structured, they often happen to be white. That feels like someone else's problem. I'm not racist. I just don't have time for most people. And a lot of the time, they happen to be black. I'm sorry if people perceived me yelling at them, threatening to get them fired, shouting "ooh" in their face as cruelty. I didn't realize all these years later that people would care what you said. Anyway, and then she inserted the other bit, and you can tell. Insert part about growing, learning, growing, insert close off, Lea Michele.
Yeah, that's exactly what she wanted to say, isn't it? But yeah, her PR person said, let's keep that. That's great. Yeah. let's bank that maybe for later.
Next time.
We won't give that to the people because as you mentioned about the ooh moment, there was an extra actor called Chase Edmondson, and he tweeted that he did background on Glee for seasons 3 and 4, and his strongest memory of Lea Michele was that she was storming out of the Glee classroom set yelling, "Does anyone have gum?" He was standing right near her with gum already in hand. He said, "I do," and offered it to her, and she looked at him and said, "Ew," before walking off and onto the next room. And I just really like that imagery of her looking at a person, a human being, and saying, "Ew," when he is offering her something.
I offered a girl in high school gum, and I realised as I pulled it out that it had gone through the wash with my uniform the night before and it was wet and soggy. And I'm sure she said ew. And so my first thing was, you know, maybe it was gross bottom of your bag gum with the dog hair and some sand on it.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe she was saying ooh to the gum, not to him.
Exactly.
That's important.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem like it's a coincidence that all these allegations are coming at her, but, you know, never say never.
Again, though, specific enough that we know it's true. And that's what we love about this story.
Another actor and singer called her abusive, rude, condescending, and at times downright cruel.
Okay.
We've got a Real Housewives of New York star who said, "You were once very unkind to me." We have...
Give us specifics.
I know. I'm like, come on, tell me the petty thing that she said. There's another understudy who was in a Broadway musical with her who said, "You were nothing but a nightmare to me. You made us feel like we didn't belong." This is my favourite, Jessie.
Mm-hmm.
So, actress Elizabeth Aldrich, who was Michelle's understudy in Ragtime, a Broadway production, said on Twitter, "She was absolutely awful to me and ensemble. She demeaned the crew and threatened to have people fired if she was in any way displeased. So just have an image of the Lea Michele who's behaving like this, right? I used to cry every night from the mean and manipulative things she would do. She was 12. She was 12. She was 12. Her tweet ends with, she was terrifying. She's a demon child. She's the child from The Exorcist.
She reminds me of like one of the kids from The Shining. I think that 12-year-old girls can be terrifying. I see them on like the bus sometimes and I'm like, I know you think I'm ugly. You know? Like I know they're going to say that.
I just think the image of a 12-year-old Lea Michele threatening grown adults gives me so much joy. And it's like, of course she got worse. She was a demon and she was encouraged. Then there's a trans model whose name is Plastic Marta, and she told The Sun that she was at the Emmys in 2010 and she goes to the bathroom and Lea Michele is there. She goes, "Excuse me," and she looks at her friends, looks at me again and says, "Excuse you, you're in the woman's bathroom." Okay. I went from feeling like I was on cloud 9 to feeling like a circus freak. So there we go. There's some transphobia just sprinkled in.
Yes, which is, again, it's good to know that she's an equal opportunist bully. Because she's not going to look at a trans person and go, you know, I'm going to treat you differently. No. No, I will treat you like I treat everyone else, which is by being needlessly unkind.
Interestingly, it wasn't the first time that there had been rumblings that Lea Michele wasn't all that nice. In 2016, the late Naya Rivera had written in her book about Lea Michele, and she said, "If I'd complained about anyone or anything, she assumed I was bitching about her. Soon she started to ignore me, and eventually it got to the point where she didn't say a word to me for all of season 6. Then, this is an interesting one. In 2012, Kate Hudson guest starred in a few episodes of Glee, and there were rumours that she complained about Michelle's behaviour, calling her a nightmare on set. And a source told Us Weekly that once during a technical delay, Lea snapped her fingers and said, "Let's go, I have plans." Come on. That's what I do in this studio. I say, come on, no time for this mucking about. I have plans.
Fuck Kate Hudson, who probably has 3 movies she's working on and literally everyone else in Hollywood. It's like, I'm Lea Michele. I have to go to Pilates.
Now, Lea Michele did directly address both her feud with Naya Rivera and the Kate Hudson comments, denying both of them. But it's worth noting that the Kate Hudson story came out just after the death of Lea Michele's co-star and boyfriend, Corey Monteith. And Lea Michele was pretty open about the fact that Kate Hudson had been really kind and let her stay with her family in Kate Hudson's home. So it does feel a bit weird. Like, I'm just wondering, it's like, did Kate Hudson have a whinge / leak stuff to the press and then something bad happens? She's like, oh, lol, no, come stay in my house. Or was it just gossip? I don't know. But I have to just add this, that more recently, former Elle editor Justine Cullen had her own story about Lea Michele. And she was talking about celebrities and when you shoot covers. And she said it's that second tier of celebrity that behave the worst. And she said, like Lea Michele. And she alleges that in just one of many on-set moments, Lea Michele kicked a shoe at Cullen's fashion director and made her cry. She was unpleasant. I have never believed something so wholeheartedly.
Oh my goodness. I love it. She just keeps getting worse. She's gotten worse since she was 12. Things have deteriorated. I think when she was 12, people were probably like, this is the worst it'll get. And then she was like, no, I'm going to kick shoes at people.
I need to move on to the next section, which might seem random, and that's because it is. But it's also my favourite thing about anything, and it's the theory that Lea Michele cannot read.
Caller, what's your name and from where are you calling?
Hi, I'm Taylor from New York, and my question is for Lea.
Hi.
Hi, I just wanted to say first that I love you and you're my queen.
Thank you.
But the question is, what are your thoughts on those conspiracy videos saying that you're illiterate?
God, did you hear about this?
No!
Celebrity conspiracy theories are often very fun and silly, like the one that Avril Lavigne actually died in 2003 and was replaced by a lookalike named Melissa. I like that one. Or that Katy Perry is really John Benet Ramsey. Are they harmless? Not really. They're usually somewhat disrespectful and or offensive. But you can't talk about the internet's relationship with Lea Michele without addressing this. In 2018, a 40-minute video was posted to YouTube explaining the theory. And Jessie, there are 9 pieces of evidence. I'm going to go through them quickly. You may comment. Piece of evidence 1. This isn't really evidence. It's like a summary of the case. Anyway, Lea Michele can't read and has her lines fed to her because she was a child actor on Broadway and never had time to go to school.
Okay, yes.
I know. So she was on Broadway at 8. I mean, you got a lot of reading to do post 8.
And between Broadway and bullying, it's like when you do her homework, you know?
She's a busy girl. Point number 2. She did the show Spring Awakening on Broadway for years and years because she only had to memorize the show once and it would make it easier for her. So she was offered another opportunity and she said no. And people were like, well, that's because she couldn't read the script. There's no other explanation.
Think about the whole Hamilton cast who were in it for ages. It's like, oh, yes, Leslie Odom Jr., he keeps playing Aaron Burr because he can't read.
It's the only explanation.
Can't learn another script.
Number 3. Lea Michele went to Scream Queens after Glee, another Ryan Murphy show, because he already knew her illiteracy secret and could feed her lines to her.
Good point, because Lea Michele is the only actor to ever work with the same director twice. Did you know that?
Turns out. Number 4. On Glee as Rachel Berry, she always sung well-known songs by Barbra Streisand and Celine Dion and never had to read the lyrics.
Wait, what? Because even if it was a new song, like I saw her singing Adele songs and stuff, like wouldn't she just yes, okay, let's say she can't read. You don't need to read lyrics, you just have to listen to the song. Most people don't read lyrics.
And no one's reading on screen because you're acting. Number 5. Lea Michele, this is my favourite. Lea Michele never uses her own phone. Her assistants do it for her, backed up by photographic evidence of this happening.
But that's just because she thinks she's above using a phone. That's nothing to do with illiteracy.
Number 6. In her Instagram captions, she uses a lot of emojis. If it's just emojis, that means Michelle wrote it. If it's words, someone wrote it for her. If it's both, someone wrote the words, but then she added the emoji.
I'm glad we had that clarity because I was confused. No, this is a courtroom and I am going to demand some decorum because that is not evidence. That is a theory. That is a theory.
Like you say the same thing about my Instagram. I use emojis all the time. Number 7. Also, actually, this will be my second favourite. In pictures of Lea Michele signing her books, don't even get me started. She clearly wrote the book. But in pictures of her signing the books, the pen is not touching the book. It's simply hovering.
That's just the moment they caught. That's just the moment they caught the photo. Though.
I don't know. Number 8. Her book, titled Brunette Ambition, doesn't have a lot of words and instead has more photos and recipes and workouts.
Does it have any words?
Some, but they could have been written by somebody else. Finally, in a picture of her signing a wall, there's this kind of blackboard thing. Her name is already written and she's just drawing a line under it.
Just because someone is illiterate doesn't mean they don't know how to write their own name. They're two different things. Valid. You know what I mean? Like these are different things.
I will enter one more thing into evidence.
And are we saying she can't read or are we saying she can't write or are we saying both?
Both.
Okay.
And then, so as previously mentioned, her other book is called You First, Journal Your Way to Your Best Life. And maybe it's
that someone who cannot write would write a book about journaling.
Well, I don't know. It's a good ploy to distract people, get people off the scent. But I think maybe it's called You First so that maybe she can copy. Now, I do have some evidence that I need to show you. So first, there's a picture here, Jessie.
Isn't she on her phone texting?
She's looking at her phone, texting. Boom, blew that right out the water.
And she has a singlet with words on it, and I can only assume
It's a
that
spiritual gangster.
A spiritual gangster.
Maybe she can't read.
If I couldn't read, I would not be buying T-shirts with words I didn't understand on it. Too high risk.
Well, there's also this. And Jessie, this is one of the many photos where her pen is hovering. It's not touching.
But that's what you do when you sign.
I'm just saying, I went through a lot of photos and there was no evidence of her writing. And if you type Lea Michele reading, it returns no results.
But you could type Jessie Stevens reading and no one's ever taken a photo of me reading.
Look, I would like it on the record that I do believe that Lea Michele can read and write. This is a ridiculous conspiracy theory. Also, we need to enter into the courtroom. Illiteracy, not funny, broadly. Illiteracy, quite a big issue.
You know what it makes me think, though, is that I would love a conspiracy theory about me.
Yeah.
And what would it be?
Like that you're a lizard or something.
Yeah.
And you could feed into it.
I know. They're not twins. But then just like find evidence. Yeah. I don't know where, but it's like, here they are in different places type thing.
They're different heights. It that? I reckon we need a conspiracy theory. Jessie, the last thing that I want to add is kind of it was a bit of a sad moment for Lea Michele this year that was kind of the pinnacle of her cancellation. Like, it made it so clear that she really was cancelled. And it was the revival of the musical Funny Girl.
I'm the greatest star. I am by far. But no one...
So Lea Michele's greatest idol is Barbra Streisand. Whenever she's asked, that's what she says. And Barbra Streisand starred in the debut of Funny Girl as Fanny on Broadway, then starred in the movie adaptation and won an Oscar. In 2014, Glee creator Ryan Murphy bought the rights to Funny Girl with the intention to produce a Broadway revival starring Lea. Now, throughout Glee, Lea Michele sung several songs from the musical and referenced it. And I'm pretty sure in the storyline she ends up like starring in the Broadway version. Yeah. But when the Funny Girl lead got announced, it's not Lea Michele. And everybody had a field day. And it was really sad.
What did everyone say?
Okay, everyone said, I just know that Lea Michele is shitting in her wig right now.
It's so sad but so true.
And then somebody else said Lea Michele just asked to see the manager of Broadway. Look, I just think this is evidence that cancel culture, it be real. And poor Lea Michele didn't get her Funny Girl role that she really wanted.
You know that she's like screaming in her bedroom and like, I don't know, yelling ooh in people's faces and kicking her shoes at assistants.
Yeah, she's having a real musical theatre reaction, I think. Jessie, it's time for charges and sentences. You go first.
Okay. My charge is that Lea Michele made an error young and she never rectified it. And that error was that she went full theatre. Yeah. Here's what I mean by that. You never go full theatre, right? Which is you're over the top, you go full toddlers and tiaras, you're singing, you're dramatic, you're mean to people, you think you're a star, right?
Yeah. And in her defense, she was.
I know, but she didn't retain any humility, which was confusing because she was routinely rewarded for that. For example, when she went to the audition and treated everyone badly and they said, you're perfect.
And they laughed.
And then
but
they laughed.
It wasn't a joke.
The sentence is, and I will have it on the record, that Lea Michele lost a HelloFresh deal. So I don't know what else one woman can go through.
She's suffered the consequences.
She's suffered the consequences. There are some Z-grade influences with HelloFresh deals. And for Lea Michele to have that stripped of her, I don't know what she's eating 4 nights a week. I don't. Now, the sentence I have for Lea Michele is that I want her for 2 weeks to be surrounded by people who are really trying to sing. And here's what I mean by that. I want her to get in an Uber with a man. And he's singing, Go Easy on Me, for example.
That's not the name of the song. Continue.
You knew what I meant. And he's really trying. And then your friend at karaoke. And then your sister in the car. And as they're singing really hard, they're looking at you to go, what do you think of my voice? Are you going to say anything? Because it's uncomfortable for you if you don't comment. And again, we did have a friend like this. She would do it in the car. She would like turn the radio down a bit and she would sing really hard. And I was like, no one say anything. Like in my head, I was like, don't. And then someone would go, your voice is beautiful. Where did you learn to sing? And I want that to happen to Lea Michele for 2 weeks. Because I think that's the kind of girl, the kind of energy that she's been putting out for a long time. And I think that would adequately resolve the conflicts.
Taste of her own medicine. I think that's very, very important. And if there's one thing we know about Lea Michele, she can't pretend to be nice.
No.
So she's going to be honest and upset.
Stop it. Shut your mouth.
Shut it.
Lea, it's an Uber driver. Come on.
That girl is 7.
What's your charge?
My charge is, look, I do want to caveat this by making a point because there are some people in Hollywood who do some really bad things. Has Lea Michele said some not very nice things to people in her life? Yes. Has she behaved badly? Goodness, yes. But do we find it easier to tear apart a woman for saying mean things than to tear apart a man for actually committing crimes? We do.
But that is not the job of this courtroom. Continue.
No. What I will charge her for is the following. 1 charge of cruelty. 1 charge of meanness. 1 charge of disrespectful. 1 charge of offensive.
Yes.
And many synonyms. But basically just not being very nice to people. That's what I'm charging her for.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think that by not getting her funny girl role, that's part of a sentence.
Yeah.
But I have another sentence. I have the solution to all her problems, really. She needs to star in a musical about a wig shitting fiasco. And it's a mystery who shat in the wig.
The wig shit on Clarence Street.
Yes.
Like it's got to be on a street, you know?
Yeah. I think that that's the story. So I think she needs to star in that. This Ryan guy, he can make it because he doesn't have Ryan Murphy. He doesn't have Funny Girl anymore. So he can have my wig shitting idea.
Okay.
If
that
he
sounds
does
really
it justice.
good.
And then I want a filmed version on Disney+. Maybe Lin-Manuel can be in it. He can do the music.
He'd do a great job. He'd do a great job.
He'd make it really profound. Well, Jessie, that is all we have time for on Cancelled today. If you like listening to Cancelled, you can give us a rating. That would be really nice. Don't do a Lea Michele and leave a mean rating.
And if you go to the Twins' Thoughts on Instagram, we will put up that audition video. I watched it like 11 times to work out what I was watching and it was just outstanding. We'll put up compilations of her behaviour on Glee. We will put up awkward interviews. It's just addictive to watch. Highly recommend. This podcast was produced by Rose Kerr and the head of podcasts at Mamamia is Eliza Ratliff. And we will chat to you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Nobody speaks to me like Mamamia.